Can you imagine how it would feel to be called to the front of the class to present the book report that you left at home? That's exactly how I feel today. Welcome back to Beyond 40 and Just Getting Started, where we dive into the journey of growth and abundance after 40. 1 month ago, I announced the first false peak that I want to climb. That was my 1-year challenge, starting with $50,000 in seed capital, utilizing flipping land to generate a net profit of $100,000. So 1 month into my journey, it's time to recap where we're at and talk about progress of this land flipping challenge. My land flipping entity is called Summit Acreage, and the best way to summarize its status is behind schedule, which is exactly why it feels like I left my book report at home. Land flipping is essentially a marketing business. Fundamentally, the task is to find landowners who would prefer to convert that land into convenient cash. So as a marketing business, there's a lot of effort required in reaching out to potential candidates because response rates are so low. In the plan I've created for myself, I'm expecting a response rate of 2% on mailers that we send out. And of those 2% responses, I'm only expecting to convert into land purchases about 1.5%. Additionally, as a starting point, I'm assuming that walkaway profit per deal will be $1,500. With those three numbers in place, we can frame an entire plan regarding how many pieces of land need to be bought and sold, how many offers need to be made, and hence how many mailers need to be sent. For a more thorough outline of the plan, I encourage you to visit the corresponding Substack post through the link below. The important point here is that utilizing those assumptions, that means that I need to send out 235,000 mailers. Let's pause for effect so we can appreciate the size of that number. Woo-wee! Upon getting to this point in my plan, I found myself facing two choices. One, I could bury my head in the sand and pretend it was going to work at the scale I was originally planning to proceed. Or two, I could acknowledge that my scale was far from sufficient and I could take steps to ramp up. I'm a competitive person. I'm not about to bury my head in the sand. So the only option is to scale up. What does that scale up look like? Currently, I've onboarded an operations manager who will primarily be responsible for improving metrics. The assumptions I talked about before, at this point, they're all just assumptions. But if we can make even a marginal improvement in the response rate on cold mailers, or a marginal improvement on the profit per deal, all of a sudden, the project's not nearly as intimidating. All of a sudden, the project is much more manageable. So my first action was to identify somebody who could really follow those metrics and ensure that as soon as we get hard data, that we're taking steps to improve that hard data. Next, we're also expanding the VA team. My plan is to break the VAs up into those responsible for buying land and those responsible for selling land. But I know that the scale I had anticipated previous was not going to be able to handle 235,000 mailers. The other scaling that needs to happen is operating capital. As mentioned earlier, I've invested $50,000 into this, but sending 235,000 mailers over less than a year is the equivalent of sending about 24,000 mailers a month. At a cost of about 70 cents per mailer, that's more than $16,000 in mailing costs alone per month. So as you can imagine, $50,000 won't go very far in operating capital. So part of the scaling up is finding external investment. The plan is to identify 4 investors at $12,500 apiece, bringing the total operating capital up to $100,000. Now let's talk about metrics. We're still early on in the process, so there's not a lot of metrics to report yet. But one report we can make is number of mailers sent. According to plan, by this point, we should have sent out 5,400 mailers. We have currently sent out just over 950. The only other metric, as you can tell, we need to ramp up on the mailer side quickly. The more time that passes without sufficient mailers going out, the harder it will be to catch up. The next metric we're able to report on is overall net profit. As you can imagine, 1 month into the project, we have not sold any land yet. Hence, net profit is negative $3,800. So I stand here today reporting on the progress of Summit Acreage, knowing that we're behind schedule, but also knowing that I'm just as excited about the opportunity today as I was before. My aspirations for the project of learning how to develop teams and gaining experience in onboarding external investment, both of those are coming to fruition early on in the project. I'll continue to come back on a monthly basis providing updates on the progress of Summit Acreage. Will we be able to catch up on the mailers by next month? How many more months will net profit be in the red? If you want answers to those questions, subscribe. I'll come back with a monthly progress report on the Summit Acreage False Peak. The best part about this community is that we are just getting started. See you next time.